Hi, and welcome to episode 12 of the Growth and Gratitude podcast. Today's topic is so important to me because it's about how to create more time in your life, personally and professionally. So I'm really happy to be able to share some very important ideas with you. But first, what am I grateful for right in this moment? I may have said some of these before, but I'm always real with you and I'm just sharing with you what I'm grateful for right now. And I want you to think about what you're grateful for. Right now, one, I'm incredibly grateful for my parents. They are happy and healthy, and they just celebrated their 55th wedding anniversary, and I celebrated with them, and I'm so grateful for them. I am incredibly grateful, second, for my two dogs. They are so cuddly and loving, and they're just available to me anytime that I need cuddles and love. Dogs are the best. I love cats too. I love all animals. But my two dogs right now, they bring so much to my life. And three, I'm so grateful for my clients. We just got some new contracts, projects for coaching, training, speaking, and I'm so thankful to you. If you're listening and you are a client, I am so, so grateful for the meaningful work that I get to do with you. And I'd love more, but I have enough too. So I'm just so grateful for all of it. Now, how to make more time. I cannot tell you how often I hear this complaint with my clients, with friends, with me even. I complain. I don't have enough time. I'm overwhelmed. There's so much to do. How can I possibly get it all done? Well, that's what we're here to talk about, how to make more time to get the most important things done. Now, this is a topic that I have researched, that I've talked about in coaching, that I've designed and presented training on for decades. Time management is usually what it's called, but it's so much deeper than that. It's really about how we spend the days and moments of our lives in the ways that we want to, rather than being pulled by the winds of just doing whatever others want us to do or whatever's right in front of us, but isn't really important to us. So I am going to share 5 strategies that I feel are the most helpful, have been the most helpful, or some of the most helpful. There are so many to me in my life in managing my time well and prioritizing the things that really matter to me. 5 key strategies. And I'll try to give you some examples, and I'll try to make them very clear and concise so that you can go out and start practicing them. What is the payoff? Oh my goodness, I can't imagine a more important payoff for listening to this podcast. More time to do what matters to you, to be with your family, your loved ones, for your emotional and physical wellness and well-being, spiritual practice, learning, traveling, fun, all the things that you want to do that you're likely having a hard time fitting in because it doesn't feel like there's enough time. So when I put these things into practice, I've got to tell you, it changes everything for me. I can enjoy my life more, I can do more, but I'm doing the things that really matter, and I'm scaling back on the things that I don't really want to be doing. So all of this has allowed me to do everything I do. I run 2 businesses, Samson Coaching and Consulting and Transgender School. I have 2 podcasts. I do volunteer work. I'm married, happily married. I have kids. I spend time with my parents. I spend regular time with my friends. I do a lot of exercise workouts at the gym and at home, yoga. I meditate every single day for at least 20 minutes. I'm enrolled in a rigorous 2-year mindfulness and meditation teacher certification program. I've published 3 books. I've given a TED Talk. I'm a retired professor. I could go on and on. I'm not saying these things to brag. I'm saying it to say, please believe that I have some credibility on this, because it's these very practical time management tips that I'm about to share with you that have allowed me to do so much and to enjoy all of it and really find meaning in it. It's not to be able to say, oh, I've done all these things, I'm so great, because what the truth is that I really enjoy these things and they bring meaning to my life. So here are my 5 strategies. The first strategy you've likely heard of, it's called the 80-20 principle, and it's applying the 80-20 principle in your life. There are many books on this. You can Google it. You can read it. It's also called the Pareto principle for the person who originally came up with it. His name was Pareto, P-A-R-E-T-O. So the 80-20 principle says that 80% of the results, the outcomes, the things we want to achieve in our life will come from only 20% of our activities and actions. So there's this high priority, high value 20% that we're spending our time on that's yielding 80% of the important results in our lives. And the 80-20 principle has been studied and proven in a variety of contexts and applications in life. So the time management experts say, we all agree, they all agree, and I agree that we can never get it all done. If you have an endless to-do list, you'll never get it all done. You've got to convince your brain, okay, we need to prioritize this. We cannot have this running list of never-ending things to do. We've got to figure out what really matters and pare down our list of things to do and organize it better. So 80% of our activities, probably a lot of them don't actually need to be happening. They're busy work, they're obligations, they're things that we really need to look at cutting out or scaling back significantly so that we can really focus on that high value 20% of the things that we're doing. I'll give you a really simple example in my business. So I have my own business. I am the marketing team. I have to do all the marketing to keep bringing in the business. There are so many things as a coach, consultant, and speaker that I could do to market. I could do cold calling. I could do social media posting, meetings with anybody who's willing to meet with me, free coaching, free webinars. There are so many different ways that I can market the work that I do. But most of what I just said, believe it or not, is in the 80%. It's not in the 20% of high value. I have clients that I've been working with for decades who know my work, who've seen me do training at Google, who have coached with me or hired me to coach their team members, who have seen me speak, who have followed me for a long time. Making sure that I'm connected with those people, that we're having regular meetings, that I'm checking in with them about how are things going? What are the challenges? How might I help you with those? And I enjoy that. And I deeply care about these people and feel connected to them. But when I let that slip, I see that 20% of high value activity has a direct impact, if I don't do it, on my business slowing down. And when I do it, it has a direct impact on increasing my business. So that's the 20% high value marketing activity that I have to make sure that I commit to. And then if there's time left, I can do the fun things like posting inspirational things on social media, which I do. And I do a certain amount of time to, but that's definitely in the 80%, folks. And there's a lot that's in that 80%. And I've had to be real honest with myself about using that. So read the 80-20 principle. Tim Ferriss, author of the 4-Hour Workweek and many other beloved books, who I'm sure you heard of, has been quoted as saying in the beginning of the book, the 80-20 principle rule, the 80-20 principle is the cornerstone of results-based living. The cornerstone, friends. Okay. Strategy number 2, use a project management or time management system of some kind. I am a big fan of using technology for this. We have so much available to us. Trello, Asana, any of the many project management systems that are out there. There's likely one on your computer or your smartphone already, and it'll take you 5 minutes to learn to use it. It took me just a few minutes to learn to use Trello, which is the one that I use. I love it. And I swear, when I first started using Trello just about a year ago, or maybe a little bit more than a year ago, it was so transformative. I could not believe how much time I got back in my life. And I was so surprised that I had waited that long to start using something like that. What did I use before? Oh my goodness, just that never ending, crushing to-do list that I just kept adding things to, or post-it notes, things of that nature. And none of that anymore. That was so unproductive and inefficient. Now, I did choose to do intensive coaching on using Trello and using time management systems with my coach, Sophie Sheesh, and she is amazing. I have a podcast with her on time management that I did on my last podcast, The Right Questions, the former podcast, and I'm going to link that in the show notes if you want more on this. She is amazing. I highly recommend working with her. So she taught me in depth how to use Trello and how to create my lists on Trello. For me, I have a today list, things that need to get done today. And that's usually only 3 to 5 things in addition to my meetings and my coaching sessions and any speaking or other work or marketing that I have scheduled. So don't overwhelm yourself with 25 things to do today if you know there's no way you can do it. But there's the today list. That's always things in the top 20% most important. Then there's things that need to get done this week, things that need to get done this month. There are projects listed on there. And the cool thing about Trello is you just drag things from one list to another. When you move something from one of the other lists to your done list, you get electronic confetti, and it creates this great dopamine hit and this high of, oh, I finished that task. And it's very fun and exciting. So use these systems. I was was working with a client the other day who said, I've got so much to do. I'm so buried. I'm so overwhelmed. And I asked him, how is he keeping track of all these things that he has to do? And he said, it's just his running to-do list. And I asked a simple question. Are the items on the to-do list prioritized? And of course, he was mortified to say, no, they're not. I just keep adding to the list and it just keeps growing and nothing is prioritized. And I look at it and I feel overwhelmed and I just want to go bury my head in the sand. So I said, you have got to figure out the top 20% on that list. If you have 100 things on that list, just set 80 aside right now. Figure out what the top 20 are. If you have 50 things, just pick the top 10 that are most important to get you the results. What are you being evaluated on your performance review? What are your deadlines that you're held accountable to? What's most important with your family? Is it that you go to your child's game this week, or that you have a date night with your spouse, or you check in with your brother about how his job interview went? Like, really prioritize what's in that 20% and put the rest aside for now, because as you know, you can't do it all. So we went through his list and he prioritized. He was able to set aside that 80% and say, I'm not throwing it away. I'll figure out how to prioritize that later. But first, I've got to do these most important things. So this is what we have to do. And we can use project management systems like Trello or Asana or the others to help us do this. Now, once we get things into what I have to do today, what is the top 20%? What are the priorities? Let me set these other things aside. Then we chunk things. And one of the things my Coach Sophie taught me that was so helpful is our brain goes crazy when we have a big project and we haven't chunked it into like half-hour pieces. Okay, first I need to do this and then I need to do this, and figure out what is the next step I need to take. If I say, oh, I need to do a podcast episode and that just sits there on my list, I'll be overwhelmed because there are so many steps for me to a podcast episode. First, it's brainstorming ideas. Then it's picking a topic. Then it's outlining the talk. Then it's researching and finding quotes and examples and books. And then after it's recorded, it's sitting through and watching and coming up with the editing notes. And then it's sending it to the video editor. And then it's sending the audio to the podcast producer. And then, it's coming up with the show notes. It's probably 50 steps. So I can only do the next step. So chunk things. Use your project management system to chunk things and figure out what is the next step and the next step and the next step. And I like to break things into half an hour or even 15-minute steps so that it feels manageable. And then I have a sense of accomplishment when that's done. Strategy number 3, and this comes from one of my favorite books on the subject of time management. It's called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, an oldie, but such a goodie. And the idea of Eat That Frog comes from this old story or this old parable that if you had to eat a live frog every single day, let's say it was a requirement for some reason, you would want to eat that live frog first thing in the morning, get it over with, and then everything else you do that day would seem easy. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of gross. It's horrible to think about. But eating the frog is a metaphor for doing the toughest things first. I'm sure you've heard this before, but we all, myself included, slip into that bad habit of, oh, I'm just going to do the easy thing. I'm going to answer these few emails that are kind of mindless and I can just send a quick answer. I'm going to spend some time organizing my desk or, whatever. Well, it is important to have an organized desk, but you know what I'm saying? To do those kind of easy, time consuming, in the 80% of the 80-20 rule, things that are just not the high payoff things. And that frog, which we usually have one every day or maybe one every couple days, we've got to just get it done early, do it first thing in the day, or at least do it at the time that you know is the best time for you to do it. And then you can enjoy that it's done. Think about how much it saps our energy to have it weighing on us that we have this big looming important thing to do and to be procrastinating on it and to have the deadline creeping up. Oh, that's the worst feeling. So I like to get things done really early. I was that rare college student in undergrad and grad school that never pulled an all-nighter. If I had a 30-page paper, I had to have it done 2 days before it was due. And again, it's not because I'm so great or perfect. It's because I'm selfish. I don't want the stress and the sapping of my energy of having that looming over me and ruining my fun time because I can't really enjoy it because I know I have this big thing that I'm procrastinating on. So let me give you an example. Last week was my parents' 55th wedding anniversary. I mentioned that in the beginning. And I took that day off from work and we had a fun day planned, a morning hike at 9 a.m. and then a long hike. And we love to hike together, and then lunch at our favorite place that we go for lunch. And the day before, a really important client asked me to get her, as soon as I could, a proposal for design and facilitation of a training program on diversity, equity, inclusion, which I'm really passionate about. So I really wanted to get that proposal out as soon as possible and really increase my chances of getting the gig by doing a great proposal. Proposals are not a fun part of my business and my work, but they're a big, important part of my business and my work. So I have to do them. They're often my frog for the day is doing a proposal. So I decided to, yes, get up at 5:30 that morning because I had my hike and my lunch with my parents planned. So I decided to get up at 5:30 that morning and get the proposal done and get it out in email, get it all looking beautiful and with all the elements on there and the pricing and the branding and the colors and everything that I like to do with a proposal, and get it out and emailed before even going on the hike with my parents at 9 a.m. That was eating my frog. Now I had to be honest with myself going into it. How much time do I want to allot for this? Of course, my brain wanted to say, no, get up at 6:30. It's only going to take an hour. But I know from experience that I need the cushion of 2 hours to do this kind of proposal. So I gave myself 2 hours. And believe me, it took the full 2 hours. And I was just barely ready for my parents when they got to my house at 9 o'clock for us to go on the hike together. So I loved the day. I had a great time with my parents. I didn't have this looming feeling of, oh, I have this big proposal and thinking about what I was going to put in the proposal, because it was done and it was out and it was a wonderful day. So that's an example. A couple of other lessons to take from that is, again, I'll just say, get things done early. Do not wait till the last minute. It's going to take as much time as it takes anyway. Why not do it earlier and have the relief and the sense of pride that it's done ahead of time? I have 2 podcasts. I had one other podcast in the past, and my podcast episodes are almost always recorded about a month before they are coming out. At the most, the closest would be like recording 3 weeks before they're about to come out, because there are a lot of steps in between and I might have to re-record. There might be a problem. I might want to do multiple revisions of the show notes, or there's a lot of information to gather, whatever it might be. I always get things done way ahead of time so I don't have that added stress if I'm going to do it anyway. Don't wait. Don't put things off. Get them done ahead of time. Schedule them in. It saps energy so much, and get it done right away. Once you know you have to do it, unless there's a reason to wait. Sometimes there's a reason to wait. I need to wait on someone else for information or whatever it may be, but get it done early if you can. Get it done right away, and it just feels great. So that's strategy number 3. Strategy number 4 is say no. Learn to say no much more often. We say yes to so many things out of obligation, out of guilt, just because we've always done it for this person. Sometimes we need to really take a good hard look at how we can say no to a lot more of the things that we're saying yes to, or even say no 5 or 10% more of the time. What if you could just get 5 or 10 hours more in your week? That could be your time to incorporate your workouts or your meditation or your fun or your passion project. Write your book, connect more deeply with your spouse. There are so many more meaningful things you could be doing with your time if you really assess a few things that it may be hard to say no to, but that you could start saying no to. So another client example, I was coaching a client recently, and she was just feeling so overwhelmed, and she was crying and saying, and by the way, men and women cry in sessions with me. I don't mean to make that sound sexist. So it happens all the time. And I feel honored that people can share their real feelings with me. It's never something to be embarrassed by, but it is a sign that things have gotten to a breaking point. So she was really upset and saying, I haven't spent quality time with my kids. I haven't been able to get ahead of these really important big picture, long-term projects because the day-to-day is just overwhelming. And by the way, just a side note, please check out the Eisenhower Matrix, which helps you see how to categorize what's urgent and important. And it's not always the things that are seeming so urgent that are actually important. And we want to spend a lot more time in the important quadrant and less time in the urgent quadrant. So that's a whole other system that I encourage you to look into, that since I'm trying to make this short and sweet, we're not going to get into, but I've gotten a lot out of the Eisenhower Matrix. But remembering, try to get your time in the important activities and less in that like urgent, people are pulling you to do things, or it's urgent because you didn't put out fires ahead of time. So with this client, we looked at all her activities and found out that she was just spending almost all her time in meetings. She's a high level executive, and it was like, we looked at her calendar, meeting. And I'm like, what are all these meetings? And I said, how many of these meetings do you absolutely need to be at? And she said, well, really, like absolutely for my core projects, things that I'm held accountable for, probably 50% of them. Only half. Oh my goodness. So, okay, set those aside. Let's look at the other 50%. Why are you going to these meetings? Well, because other people schedule them on my calendar, or other people invite me to them, or I feel obligated to go to some of these meetings, or this is just a standing committee meeting that I've gone to for 5 years and I always go and I never questioned it, but maybe I don't have the time to be on that committee anymore. There were endless examples of where she was just showing up and giving her precious time to things that were not anywhere near on her 20% high value list of the things that were important to her. So we were able to scale that back. And yes, granted, we had to talk about uncomfortable, difficult conversations where she was going to have to start turning down some of these meetings and thinking about her messaging to explain why it was worth it to her to be able to spend more time with her family and to be able to work on the projects that really were most important for her in her career. So really think about what you can say no to. Say no to more things that you're doing out of obligation, out of guilt, and also say no to more things that you just don't want to do. Those social engagements, parties, lunches, activities that you really just don't want to do. There is a book called 4,000 Weeks that's really popular right now. And the whole premise of it is the average lifespan for the average person is about 4,000 weeks of time. When you think about it, how many weeks have just flown by where you don't even know what you did? It was just a blur and you really didn't do anything meaningful. That's a whole week that you'll never get back. So say no more, to the point where it makes you uncomfortable, and other people might not be happy about it. And that is okay, because your time is yours and it is your most precious resource, and you need to spend it on the things that are most important to you. Here's another part about saying no is maybe you don't have to say no. You can say yes, but you're not going to do it. Can you outsource it? Can someone on your team go to that meeting and report back to you? Can you hire someone for childcare, for shopping, for errands, for making your slides, a design person? You know, it makes so much sense to outsource things, to employ other people. If your value is, let's say, $100 an hour, and you can pay someone $25 or $30 an hour, or Fiverr, I've never used it, but I hear people talk about $5 an hour to do tasks that are just draining you of all your time. It makes perfect sense to do that. My spouse and I have had a personal assistant for many years. That person runs errands and does grocery shopping. The grocery app is amazing. We just put everything on there and all the shopping gets done. And when our kids were still at home, now they're adults, the assistant would take them to school when we needed someone to do that, or to sports practices. And we prioritized the quality time with the kids and together and in our family and with our work, and all those busy little tasks could be done by someone else. You can outsource so much. I just helped a client realize she was so stressed about slides. We worked on her slides for a big presentation, and we really worked hard to come up with really compelling content, because this is a very important presentation pitch she's making. She was so happy with the content that we came up with together, but it didn't look great. And she said, oh, Bridget, now I got to figure out how to make these slides look pretty. And it's so important that they look pretty. And I agree, it is important. I know it sounds shallow, but they need to look good as well as have good content. And I said, come on, there must be somebody on your team. She's a senior executive who can help with that. And she said, yeah, but he's really busy and stretched thin. So we decided that she was going to just give him 2 slides where she had all the content, but it was kind of messy, and just ask him to do those 2 slides, create a branding, a color scheme, a look, and put all the squares lined up so that it looked really great. And then to come up with 2 additional slides that were generic templates that she could use to then input and fill in the rest of her information. I said, how long would that take him? She said, well, that would probably only take him about a half an hour. That's reasonable for me to ask. So outsource, leverage other people and other ways of getting things done if it has to be a yes, that don't take up as much of your time, and say no more often. Okay. The last one's going to be really short and sweet, but it's the most important. Plan your personal time, your me time first. That is strategy number 5. And all the time management experts that I've studied say this as well. Plan your exercise first. Plan your meditation or prayer time first. Your centering, calming, whatever helps you to do that. Plan your time with your loved ones, your friends, taking care of yourself, your doctor's appointments, your dentist, whatever it is for you, your personal time, your me time to take care of yourself. You have got to plan that first and then fit everything else in around that. There's an old saying that's well known. No one ever read a resume at a funeral. We only get so much time here. We don't like to look at the reality of death, but it's coming for all of us. And I'm looking at it a lot sooner than a lot of you are in my mid 50s. And I am not going to waste any more time on things, whether they're work related or obligations or spending time with people or in situations that don't really nourish and feed my soul when I've only got so much left. So plan your personal time first, fit work and other obligations in around that. We do not get that time back. And I cannot emphasize enough that the benefits of doing that will also help you to do all the other things you need to do. When I commit, and I do commit to doing yoga, I do yoga 2 to 3 times a week. I exercise 3 or 4 times a week doing a hard workout. I do hiking. I get out in nature. The hikes with my parents are like multiple benefits, my time in nature, my exercise, strenuous hiking, quality time with my parents. You've got to fit these things in because that will then free you up to feel good about doing all those things. Because I do those things first and I meditate every morning when I wake up. Sometimes I have to wake up extra early to get that time in, but I feel so much better for the rest of my day. I'm so much more centered for my coaching clients, or if I'm speaking and I'm nervous about it. That meditation, that doing yoga, that even if it's just a 20-minute on the Peloton for me, it changes my whole mood and the whole dynamic of the day. And then I'm able to do so many more things. Recording this podcast today, I went to yoga this morning. I'm recording this in between meetings. I researched for it today. I reviewed my books on time management and listened to some podcasts on time management. But I did yoga. I meditated for 20 minutes this morning, which is usually the shortest that I'll do. I did all those personal things. And tonight I'm going to have great personal time with my spouse, Neil, relaxing and doing the things that we do and taking my time, making a healthy big salad for dinner, which I do every single night. These are the things that are necessary to plan time for and to make sure you have time for first, then work, then obligations, then the other things. And by the way, time with your family, if you have kids, you do not get that time back. And I'm not saying you need tons of time with your kids, but you do need that quality time and to look at what's most important with your kids. Now that my kids are gone, they're gone. They don't live near me and they're thriving and doing great. Boy, am I glad that I was not a workaholic when they were growing up, that we worked out our schedules and our commitments to work. I ran a business the whole time and I had many obligations, but I really prioritized my time with my kids, which is part of this personal time. The strategy number 5 is time with kids. If you don't have kids, you have loved ones, you have people, your pets, whoever it is, you need to prioritize that time and figure out a way to use the other 4 principles that I've talked about to get the work and the obligations done, because there's nothing more important. No one ever read a resume at a funeral. I will say it again. They're going to talk about how much you loved people, how you were there for people, what a good listener you were, the time you took to care for people and give and be really present. That's what matters in life. I know you know that. So start putting these 5 principles into practice to live it. Use the 80-20 principle. Use a time management, project management system. Eat that frog. Do the hardest things first and early. Don't put them off. Don't procrastinate. You'll waste so much energy. Say no more, a lot more, and plan your personal time first. I really hope that 1 or 2 things resonated for you and you put them into practice, or maybe more, because this is the one life we know of that you get. And I want it to be beautiful and meaningful for you and for you to be connected with the people in your life on a deep, deep level. So much love. Namaste. All my best to you. And let me know what you think of all this. If you want to reach out, I'm here and I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.